So firstly, just to thank the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation who made this event possible. So today we have this wonderful community in the room, and I'm sure those of you online are able to see some of the people in the room. We have a range from UCT, STEAM, Department of Higher Education and Training, Creative Commons, SADI, Department of Basic Education, Stellenbosch University, and Open Education Global. Thank you for all of you for making the efforts to come here today to UCT, and we're in a room in the Upper Campus UCT libraries. And then online, we have, and we're very proud of this, we have 17 of the South African higher education institutions represented today, including 2 colleges. So we feel like we have a wonderful group of representatives, and we are looking forward to hearing more from you as the day goes on. We also have online a number of different individual consultancies and organizations, government and representatives from the South African National Commission for UNESCO. Internationally online, we have representatives from 8 different countries. And then I'm quite pleased to announce the Unicorn Network on Open Education. So this will be launched officially on the 26th of June. And as you can see, it has partners from all over the world, of which UCT will be one in the future. And we're very proud to have other representatives of this partnership in the room today who will be talking face-to-face and online. And there'll be much more about this incredible incredible network with such expertise as we go along. Then a little bit of housekeeping. So we're very excited about this event, and we have Savannah who's doing photography, and we will be recording the event and hopefully collating the findings from the workshop and so on. If you have any areas of concern around images, please let us know during the course of the day. We'll make sure that we've respected your wishes. And then, importantly, all outputs from this event will be licensed under Creative Commons 4.0 International License. Then you've already very briefly seen Lauren and Lucky, but we have other students in the room today who are part of our student fellowship program. And they will be doing some reflections on the day, their experience of working with us before this event, during the event, and their thoughts that they take forward from the event. And if you are a student online, we encourage you to please use the QR code to also share your reflections. We really appreciate that. Then just a little bit more housekeeping. At the back of the room, there is tea and coffee, water, and also breakfast and other food. And you're welcome to get up at any point to help yourself. Very informal. We are going to have a number of presentations now, kind of in a row, and then we'll have a break later this morning. So if you're hungry, please do get up and grab something. And then the other housekeeping is the parties, which is out on the side. And now it's my pleasure to ask Professor Roxana Osman to do a very official welcome to us today. Roxana is the UNESCO Chair for Teacher Education for Diversity and Development. She's the Deputy Vice Chancellor Senior at the University of the Witwatersrand. She is Chair of the South African UNESCO Chairs Forum, the member of the South African National Commission and UNESCO South Africa. I'm going to stop sharing so that Roxana can come online.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, Glenda?
Yes, clearly.
Good. Thank you very much. It really gives me great pleasure to have a few moments to speak at this seminar. And my particular pleasure is that I chair the South African UNESCO Chairs Forum on behalf of the National Commission. It's worth knowing that the Commission hosts some 18 UNESCO chairs here in South Africa, and we across a few universities. I want to take this opportunity really to welcome the Secretary General of the Commission, Mr. Carlton Makoe, and I think he's joining us online. Carlton, if you are around, let us see your face and give us a wave there. He's actually been a pillar of support to these 18 chairs across our many universities in South Africa. So a very warm welcome to you, Secretary General. I also want to extend a really warm welcome to so many UNESCO chairs who have traveled to Cape Town and some who are joining online. It's wonderful to see the kinds of collaborations that may come out of this symposium. And I suppose that's precisely the purpose of many UNESCO chairs is research, development, and collaboration. I want to extend a welcome to many participants from across the world. And you saw in the two slides a few moments ago the number of different organizations that have joined. I suppose there's a strong suggestion there that knowledge exchange is no longer sufficient just between universities, but it's got to be between across universities, but across a multiplicity of sectors. I may be mistaken, but I even heard one of my colleagues from Sadie in the background. Tony, if you're there, show us your hand. Tony Lelliot, I heard you speaking and I recognized your voice immediately. So it's wonderful to have Sadie in here as well. I think this is really a timely seminar asking us to think and rethink the future of open education in higher education. My own sense as a UNESCO chair and of course as a Senior Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic for Teaching and Learning has taught me that there are more or less 4 or 5 areas or maybe 3 or 4 areas that if you want to rethink the future of open education in higher education, you'll have to certainly bring these areas in focus. And my sense is that if you want to develop a continental or a global research network like the one represented here today, that requires nurturing collaboration and shying away from competition for resources. I also note that if we want to rethink the future of open education in higher education, then together we need to create what I call a network of networks so that duplication of activities and duplications of processes are minimized. I suppose for us who are on the continent and those of you present here from the continent, trying our best to create a continental pool of talent that can easily be allocated to expert programs as and when required across the world. I'm delighted to see participation from so many students in this program. And I think Glenda and Dorothy, you are absolutely right in rethinking the future of open education. It's an intergenerational and multi-generational question. And actually across the generations, we think differently and we work differently. So it's wonderful that you've been so inclusive in who all is present here. My main point that I would like to make for all of us who are present here, and I know the Secretary General will support that, is that as we think about the future of open higher education, in Africa, we should not be looking to erode our own capacity through competition, but rather exponentially growing it through complementarity and collaboration. Now, some may say this is a big ask because competition is the order of the day. Here you're asking me to be collaborative, but others may say that this is doable. And I myself am a firm believer that it's doable. But if we consider this doable, I will say that higher education institutions, together with other sectoral players like those represented here today, are poised to meet this challenge and produce opportunities and trajectories for open higher education in the next decade. And of course, this has to be done in the context of the future of work. I think Dorothy and Glenda from UCT and Dorothy from Northwest University are really setting an excellent example here of showing how such collaborations can work as we rethink the future of open education. But why is this possible now to rethink, and why is it possible to do? I do think some things have changed. The global higher education landscape is rapidly changing following the digital recalibration necessitated by pandemic-related lockdowns in 2020. I think the digital shift implies a great deal of benefit for the African continent because although we're less digitally mature than our higher income counterparts, Africa could significantly and swiftly address its many shortages through the brain gain implied by open education. In some ways, colleagues, Africa's higher education potential is less constrained by the legacies of the pre-pandemic world and is thus positioned to rapidly incorporate new forms of technology and learning in its wake. And Dorothy and Glenda putting forward this symposium at this time provides a perfect opportunity to rethink and reimagine. Of course, we may need to redefine our relationship with tech as an integral part of our efforts to renew the social contract for open higher education. And of course, we must always be aware of the political economy of technology and its uneven distribution. But I think it's in moments of being together like this in this symposium that we can rethink the future today in person. So let me leave you and conclude with 2 or 3 thoughts on the future of open higher education for us on the continent and probably the world. And I'm sure these questions will come up in your deliberations today. I think leveraging existing partnerships between UNESCO chairs is vital. Building epistemic and philanthropic bridges between the North and the South and the South and the South is crucial. To reimagine the future of open education does mean challenging the colonial-inspired historical intracontinental competition for talent and resources. And this point, colleagues, you'll notice I'm repeating once or twice in my opening remarks. I think this is going to be very important if we can reimagine and we can challenge this type of competition for talent and resources. Finally, to commit to open education requires a strong commitment to a philanthropy of ideas and the pooling of the continent's human, epistemic, and innovation potential. So I have no doubt that this is a momentous decade for Africa and for South Africa and, of course, for the world. It can be a decade that can deliver by reimagining open education through the collaborative networks, through collaborative work between the UNESCO chairs and other sectorial players across the continent and the world. I know that it brings the National Commission significant pride in seeing this seminar today, where the two UNESCO chairs are collaborating and have put together a global symposium. So I wish you very well in the days ahead, or well, it's actually just till 4 o'clock. I will be able to join you for parts of today, but not for the whole day, unfortunately. So on behalf of the National Commission, a really warm welcome to the symposium. And let me thank Glenda and let me thank Dorothy for putting this together and leading the way in our thinking about the future today. Thank you very much for inviting me to say a few words on behalf of the National Commission. And all of you are very welcome to Cape Town. I wish it was Johannesburg, but to Cape Town and of course to the University of Cape Town. Very warm welcome. Thank you, Glenda and Dorothy.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Michelle Walters. I work here at UCT, the Centre for Innovation in Learning and Teaching, and I'm part of the Digital Open Textbooks for Development Initiative, which is led by Glenda, my colleague, Bianca. Thank you, Sana, for your opening comments and inspiring words. In this next session, we are going to move to an international global perspective. We're very honored to have 3 members of the UNESCO UNISA network who are going to talk to us today from Tunisia, Lebanon, and France. And Ilya, are you in the room? Yeah. Could you maybe...
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I'm going to hand over to you to get the conversation started. Do you have slides? Would you like to share your screen? Lydia is...
Yes, I have slides.
Okay, great. He is the head of digital learning and pedagogical innovation unit at... You're going to have to help me, Lydia. How do you pronounce the name of your university? SUS.
Thank you very much, Glenda, for giving me this opportunity. So I'm Lilia Shiniti from SUS University in Tunisia, and my talk will be about open and innovative learning. And I will take this opportunity to share with you some projects that we have conducted in my country, but also in the region, in MENA region, in Middle East and North African region, and some lessons that we have learned further to these projects. So the outline of my talk will be the following. I will first start with speaking about the issues that we faced during the pandemic, but also some main challenges that we have noted, and further to these challenges, the project that we have conducted, in particular related to open education, and some lessons and future steps. So I think that to make it a little bit easier, so I think that it's very important actually to summarize actually the observation or the issues that we have faced during the pandemic related to this didactic triangle, which is composed of three pillars: the content, the learner, and the teacher. From the side of the content, we have, at least in my country, in my university, we have observed that there is not a lot of course material that has been already in a digital format or that have an integration of multimedia elements. And this content, when it exists, it is hosted on different environments. And from the teacher side, we have observed that there is a gap or a lack of digital competencies, and also they have some difficulties to design their online courses. Also, from the side of the learner, they have difficulties to access to LMS, but also problems in terms of diversity of tools and multiplicity of resources. So further to that, we have been thinking that there is a very huge need to put in place innovation framework that would support the teacher in deployment of educational initiatives, and that would incubate some more educational innovation and explore, give them the possibilities to explore further educational technologies, and to support them in putting in place these innovative and digital and open scenarios. So basically, we were also focusing during this pandemic, but also just after this pandemic, that it is very important, besides the fact that we have to think about open education, and it is also very important to think about the relationship between deployment of digital and open education, but also targeting the sustainable development and targeting education for sustainable development, because this would actually enable us to put in place kind of interdisciplinary and collaborative approaches, and to further enhance this kind of digital transformation in our curriculums. On another side, we have also been thinking about the importance of innovation, because innovation would enable us to put in place this kind of new spaces for incubation of digital learning or innovative pedagogical approaches, but also us the opportunity to think about the new roles that have the learner and the teacher. The teacher would be more in the role of facilitator, and the learner would be more active in his or her learning. Open educational resources offer a lot of opportunities, in particular for the learner. They gain in terms of autonomy, in terms of access to learning, a variety of learning resources for the teacher, saving time, more visibility of their educational resources. For the university is more many advantages in sharing of educational resources and enabling this kind of lifelong learning and a kind of democratization of access to knowledge. On the other side, we have been also thinking about the importance of inclusive learning. I will speak about one project related to inclusive and open education, but we have been also focusing about the importance of using artificial intelligence technologies to enable this kind of inclusive learning and to enable this kind of quality of learning and actually personalization of learning and more adapted learning to the various profiles of learner. So I will now start about sharing some results of some projects that we have conducted in my university, but as I said, also in the region. The first project is this is actually a project that we have conducted with the University of Geneva, but it concerned also 3 universities from the MENA region: Tunisia, Sousse University, Alexandria University in Egypt, and also another university, IUL University in Lebanon. And we have set up the first actually network of learning labs in and we have actually, I have here a screenshot of one of our publications related to this project, where we have defined actually the learning lab as a kind of composed of spaces, of physical or digital spaces, activities, but also targeting these activities for a community. So you see here the learning labs that we have set up, and also the logos of the universities that are involved in this project, and the website of this project. But what was very interesting in this project, that we have also addressed open education. We have actually initiated a kind of initiative in the framework of this project that we have called OER Wiki at MENA project. And in this initiative, we have actually tried to collect open educational resources, languages that are spoken in the region: Arabic, French, and English. And we have actually conducted some workshops to tutor or to accompany our colleagues in the way that they have designed these open education resources and the way that they can choose licenses and share these resources. It was a very nice actually initiative, and it enabled us to collect various resources in different languages. We have put as a challenge to collect 100 resources, online resources, OERs in 100 days, and we have by the end collected more than 155 resources. We have also conducted, as I said, some workshops to help our colleagues to actually to be aware about the importance of open education, but we put in place some other trainings of trainers, like the COCs. It's a certificate for 1 year for related to digital learning and innovative pedagogy, and it concerns since 2019 around 30 university teachers from my university. And in this certificate, we have a module related to open education and raising awareness related to open education. We have also put in a book this year for PhD students for concerning open education and instructional design of resources, and also we have conducted a lot of training sessions related to MOOCs and OERs. The second project that I find very, very interesting is called Project Open to Sustain. This project actually was funded by the IUF, Francophone Agency for universities, and it concerned two European universities and universities from the MENA region, and it was conducted during around 18 months. And the main objectives of this project is actually to think about designing open scenarios using open educational resources to address SDGs and to integrate SDGs in the curriculums. Because of the time constraints, we were not able to focus on all SDGs, so that we choose to focus only on the SDG number 5, which is the SDG related to gender. So in order to implement actually what we have designed in this project, we designed actually a small private online course that we have called e-gender, gender in digital education, because we were convinced that in order to address gender aspects in our curriculum and in digital learning, it is very interesting to address this SDG through open scenarios, through open educational resources, but also through innovative approaches. So what we have done, we have designed this book, e-gender. We have deployed this book for 2 sessions, and we have certified actually many colleagues from the regions. So you see on this slide that we have 34 learners this book for 2 sessions, and now we are preparing of this book to be deployed soon again in our region. And we were proud that we have obtained a prize for that related to book in gender. Excuse me, Glenda?
Sorry, it's Michelle again. Just 3 minutes. 3 minutes.
3 minutes, yes. I just arrived to the end. These are some research projects that we have conducted. I just would like to speak about very recent project that we call Open Med Scholar. This is a project with Geneva University with my colleague Dr. Barbara Klaas, and in this project we have developed for assessing competencies related to open science, open and community. I would like to go to the lessons. So we first of all, we think that OER could be considered as a very good tool for innovation, because it would enable us to share the knowledge. I have cited that we have promoted actually the resources in different languages in the region that are spoken, but also to the enrichment. This enables us also to enrich the courses with a better quality of teaching. I think that now we have to target more and more this innovative and intelligent and inclusive open learning. But for that, what I would recommend is that we should have, based on this project, we should have in our universities this kind of learning labs, but learning labs or open SDG labs that would enable to incubate scenarios related to open education, but also to target these SDGs in our curriculum. On this slide, you see that there are many challenges to face related to putting in place this open digital system policies that should follow, but also trainings of trainers and having also a legal and agile framework in order to be able to deploy this open framework in our academic institutions. We need a kind of progressive transformation. We need also to think about quality. Quality is an important aspect when we are speaking about OERs. We have already started working a research project related to the quality criteria of selection and sharing and recommendation of resources. And I think that open education could not be separated from open science, is part of the open science framework. And finally, I finished with saying that we need to move beyond the idea that an education is something provided for us, but towards the idea that an education is something that we create. This is a citation of Stephen Downes. This is a photo from my nice country. You are all most welcome in my country. Thank you very much, Glenda.
Thank you, Leah. We're going to move from Tunisia to Lebanon. Dr. Fawzi Barouj is the UNESCO Chair in Open Educational Resources for Access and Success and Assistant Vice President for Information Technology at Notre Dame University, was Lebanon. So the end there. Fawzi, are you with us online?
Hello, good morning to you all. Good morning to our colleagues and friends. You know, I see many faces. And hello from Beirut, Lebanon. You can hear me well, right? And you can see the presentation. Yeah, good. All right, so let me start my presentation, you know, giving some context about, you know, the spread of higher education institution in the MENA region. And those institutions in our region are characterized by an impressive array of diversity. And they differ usually when we talk about higher education universities in the MENA region. You know, either, you know, they are classified by sector, public, non-public, by affiliation, you know, like related to the Ministry of Higher Education or other ministries, by type, for example, traditional open universities, virtual universities, and by cultural reference, you know, Islamic universities, Christian, non-religious institutions, so on and so forth, and of course by the model American, French, German, all type of universities. So my university is a private institution in Beirut, Lebanon, adopting the American system of study. Now, how about open education resources? What's happening in our area, in the MENA region? And we believe that, you know, little information exists regarding the awareness of the perceived utility of open educational resources in teaching, learning, and research. The data is, we don't have much data. Okay, so we can draw a better picture of what's happening in this field. We have a lack of what we call interregional collaboration and information exchange in the MENA region. And also we have a culture of protecting learning, you know, and teaching resources behind firewalls and passwords. Okay, this is still this culture, unfortunately. And the growth, you know, of and development of OER, you know, it's in this English-speaking countries. It's much better than the OER in our developed countries, specifically in the MENA region. Let me just briefly, you know, go about, you know, my journey with open education resources and openness in general. It started back in 2014, where I joined with 15 leader champions, I call them, from the Middle East. Where we attended a 1 month in the United States to understand more what was happening back then. And the project, it was called the Open Book Project. And the objective of this project was to raise awareness about OER, to support the creation of Arabic language OER resources, and of course, you know, to offer training and support to government educators, so on and so forth. So since 2014 at my university, you know, I followed this simple process or action plan. I came back from the United States. I started doing awareness campaign, training. I started involving faculty members and different faculties. We have 7 faculties at our universities. And then we started a pilot project with OER at the Faculty of Humanities. And later on, we expanded to so many other faculties. So now at my university, I can say we have a culture of openness because, for example, in the physics department, you know, they are adopting completely open textbook. In the mathematics department, in the English department, so on and so forth. So we We have used different strategies of engagement, from awareness, from posters and multimedia, from individual discussion, email announcements, so on and so forth. In general, throughout the years, I can say, there are a lot of challenges, and those challenges are not at my institution. They are at the national level, at the regional level. The first challenge is that there is no sufficient awareness about open education resources. Another important thing is, like the policies, absence of policies at institution and at the national level. Absence of quality or materials, specifically also in Arabic language, not available, and a lot of what we call lack of enthusiasm about or motivation for faculty member to adopt open education resources. The time constraint for faculty member, this is another challenge, saying we don't have time to search, to look for those resources. Incentives at the institution levels, or acknowledgement from institution to those faculty members adopting OER, and of course there are some technical and infrastructural strategies. From my experience, a lot of faculty at my institution voiced concern regarding the perceived benefits at the beginning and advantages of using open education resources. They talked about the quality, and this is something you hear everywhere, because people don't know about, OER, they don't know about where to find them, so on and so forth. The quality was an important factor. Another lesson, collaborating between faculty members, or instructors who share common interests is very important. And if I want to say something, about, for example, training, because, this is what I've been doing for the past 10 years, there are different type of training that, champions or OER champions that they can do is, in different areas, for example, so that faculty member understand the meaning and concept of open education, training on copyright and open licensing, training on how to search, adopt, and remix open education resources, training about where do they find the quality education resources, I mean by the digital repositories. Collaboration is something very important, how to build a community of practice, and of course, accessibility and inclusivity also, those are topics, which are important for training. On top of that is, the quality frameworks, what exists, so on and so forth. Another thing, that, I advise, about, how to, what are the ways, for faculty members to encourage them to use open education resources. You can use monetary reward, you can use digital badges, you can use certificate of appreciation. Faculty members who, develop their courses using open education resources, maybe they can be featured on the university website, so on and so forth. Now, at the university level, I can say now at our university, we have a culture of openness. Now, we wanted to transfer this knowledge at the national level, and that's why we signed a memorandum of understanding between my university and the Center for Education Research and Development, which is the right arm of the Ministry of Education and Higher Education. We offer the trainers and the content books created at the national level for K-12, a lot of training, more than 50 workshops. And the most important thing that I was leading here in the area, and this is, believe me, it's very important, is that we develop a policy at the national level. And this policy, OER policy, it is in English and in Arabic, and it can be found on the Center of Education Research website. On top of that, we created an OER quality guide, so that, teachers or trainers, if they want to find resources, what is the quality guide and what do they have to check. And of course, we created for them an OER, OER production workflow. If I want to produce an OER, what are the steps, before publishing this OER. At the regional level, I've been involved with a lot of awareness and capacity building with UNESCO in Egypt, Sudan, Kuwait, and Oman. And at the international level, I'm so glad and we are proud that our university now is a part of the UNESCO UNITWIN Open Education Network, and maybe Colin, my colleague, will talk about this later on, but we are very proud of that. And the last thing I want to mention is we had a very beautiful and nice collaboration with South Africa, where we have produced an open education resource and open pedagogy book jointly between a researcher in Lebanon and researcher from different universities in South Africa. And this book, it's called Open Education Resource and Open Pedagogy. It is an open textbook, open access for all of you to just take a look at it. So our future direction, sharing our initiative and experience at all levels, trying to launch a research mechanism for Lebanon and the MENA region to measure the effectiveness and efficiency of OER, and of course to continue the advocacy for OER Lebanon and the region. And this is, the website for OER Lebanon, oerlab.org. And I want to thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to present what we are doing in our area. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fauzi, and thank you for your excellent timekeeping and giving me my reminder. We will move next to Professor Colin Mandela-Iwera.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So Colin
Okay, so that's
is
good.
with us from France. He's the UNESCO chair in OER and Artificial Intelligence at Monash University, and he's also the network coordinator of the UNESCO UNITWIN network.
So thanks a lot for the invitation, and I'm impressed about the number of people that are connected today. I could tell you about the, I think, really exciting stuff that we're doing in France and the issues we have and why these issues can be different. But I think the really important thing I should be talking about today in about, say, 10 minutes is about this So it's called I love the word. So which is the UNITWIN network on open education, which has already been mentioned a couple of times. So let me present it to you and also see how it can interact with the activities that you have, the challenges you have, and so on. So a UNITWIN network is a tool designed by UNESCO. UNESCO has got chairs, which are well known. There's about now, I wrote 800. This was last year. Now there's about 1,000 chairs worldwide. And some of these chairs, of course, are about education, distance education, open education, and similar topics. So, one of the things UNESCO does is suggest that people who have chairs sort of move together, perhaps bring in other people, and then organize a network. As often or usual with UNESCO, these things are not funded, but funding can come hopefully afterwards. So the idea of this network came from OE Global 2022, and I saw Igor and Gino connected. So, I mean, some people around will know what this is. This is an important, if not the most important event in open education. And it took place in Nantes just after the pandemic. And the event was great, and we were approached by UNESCO saying, hey, you should try and do this. So we did. So we did, and we submitted, and it was accepted. So the question is, does the world need this? Because, we've got lots of things out there. We've got the Open Education Global, we've got the Dynamic Coalition, there's informal groups of all types, and there's the chairs, and there's national agendas. But in fact, when we started looking into this, we realized that the international research agenda was still rather weak. So when people published, they had to publish probably as a separate volume in a private collection. There was something a little bit absurd in a way to sort of, do all the effort of talk about openness and then go and see a private publisher and publish there, with often very big costs involved. Secondly, cooperation is clearly mostly bilateral. An example was given by Fauzi here. So you do find chances and occasions of working with a colleague you like, but there are little occasions to work worldwide because there's the lack of structure for doing this. We also believe that North-South cooperation needs extra tools, because if not, we get very quickly blocked. And then there's the challenge, which is open educational resources have always been the steering line, what is most important. But the question is that it? So when you realize the reason for which OER are the most important objects is because we all know how to define them. So if you're trying to obtain an international agreement, like, for example, the 2019 recommendation, doing
Colin,
it on the basis...
Colin, your slides are not moving, huh?
Well, I know. I don't know. I don't know how to do this. Sorry, Teams
just at the
yeah.
bottom, presentation mode. You click on presentation mode.
I did.
Oh,
of course I did.
Oh, okay.
I
Sorry.
did. Can you see it now?
Yeah. Now it's moving. Yeah.
But it's not on present. The thing is, if I'm on presentation mode and Teams, I felt like saying that there's a North-South divide, but there's also a Microsoft, non-Microsoft divide, and it is becoming. So anyhow, so if you're seeing this, well, what I was saying is just this one. So yes, so we do believe that there's themes that are important, and we've understood that these themes are important in the global South, and these themes have to reach the global North. So that's why we wanted to do this network. Okay, so we think also that the world needs this now. The World AI has mysteriously not really been mentioned yet this morning, but it is clearly the bigger factor changing education this moment. And it's not changing it only directly, it's changing it indirectly by sort of increasing the speed of change. It's increasing the speed of opportunities, of risks, of novelties, of needs in education. And we are finding that the, let's say, old-fashioned way of doing education is not able to follow at the right speed. So our belief is that openness does allow you to go faster, because you've got mechanisms for sharing directly, one-to-one, without having to go up to the top and back down, without waiting for a private publisher to come up with the ultimate textbook that you can at last use. So these are reasons for which we want to actually promote this now and not later. So let me very quickly just show you pictures of the network's partners, not because they are famous, but because I think it's nice if you identify a person or two there thinking, they're in it. So, you may feel tempted to contact them or to keep into contact with us. So Athabasca University in Canada with Rory McGreal, who's been around in the field of open education for a long time, is there. Mexico is there. We find Maria Soledad and the Tecnológico de Monterrey. So we're going to find 4 languages, roughly speaking, there. We're going to find the English language, the French language, the Spanish language, and the Arabic language. And then also different people, like this is Brazil. So this is Portuguese language, and Telamiel. We are going to find La Universidad de la República in Uruguay. So this is Spanish, and this is Regina Motz. There is the Université de Rabat in Morocco, very hugely active in this moment in the field of open education. They are actually training all their teachers, all their PhD students to open education and also to AI. So I think they're really moving very fast in the right direction. The UNIR in Spain with Daniel Burgos, many of you will probably know. Oh, this is me. Nantes University isn't one of the biggest, most important universities in France, but we are, a leader when it comes to open education. University of Bonn in Germany with Christian Stracker, Joseph Stefan Institute in Slovenia. This is very much closer to the artificial intelligence side of open education, which is an important side for us all. John Shaw-Taylor is the president, the director of IRCAI, which is a research institute associated to UNESCO on AI and with a very strong open education component. We've just heard Lilia Serciniti in SUS, and this brings us another of the Arabic components. Fawzi, we've also just heard, so this is Lebanon. And now we get, so the reasons of the order, I think is just the alphabetic order for the countries or something like that. But then we get to South Africa with Glenda and with Mpine. So two of the, I believe, three chairs that are involved in South Africa on the theme. The third chair is not associated because it wasn't populated, let's say, in the moment that we did the submission. And then New Zealand is present through the OER Foundation and through the University Te Pukenga. So you see 16 members, which are diversified over the world, because you have to put 16. We probably could have put much more, but I mean, UNESCO said 15 maximum, so we just pushed and put 16 in. So what are the overarching questions here? It's what is open education? And we're sort of starting with a simple definition of saying it's open educational resources plus open educational practices plus the free and open source software. The second one is to really study in depth through both research, teaching, and activities. How does open education allow for a better sharing of knowledge? And a question which is important for many in South Africa is how is open education necessary for social justice? So we have identified 10 questions. I don't really have time to go through them all here, but these 10 questions are divided into 4 packets. So one packet corresponds to community building and support. So this is saying that education is not just done inside the university or isn't done inside just the schools. And open education is a way of also connecting with society. So we have to study this and give examples. Sometimes it's not really about doing something entirely new. Sometimes it's just about finding something that is doing a real difference in, say, Uruguay and making it known worldwide, and perhaps then seeing how, say, in South Africa, we can readapt that and sort of say, well, you know, that idea that worked there could actually work with us also. So the question of community building is important here. Of course, this is also a way we have to do it, not just on our own. We have to work with the rest of the actors and, of course, with the UNESCO. There's a number of research topics that we have to look into. So there's a critical examination where we have to see how, well, the relationship with technology and an openness and how all this matters. So this is already happening. So it's all a question of just saying, let's just exchange papers, exchange students, exchange experiences, organize workshop, organize discussions. The one of today is a perfect example of this, to be able to just go further. We need to talk about capacity building. So how can we have more PhDs, more students, more people involved in this? And then there's all the social justice issues which have to appear also. Education, there are courses. I gave examples of courses. Yes?
3 minutes.
Okay. I gave example of courses and things happening in Morocco. I think I know that Lilia also mentioned coursewares and courses in Tunisia. We've all got courses and coursewares. We need to share this because we need to share the experience. We need to share the materials so that we can train more and more people to open education. And software, we want to develop, promote, and share software involved with open education. So conclusion, what happens next? Well, what happens next is that I invite you to the launch of the network, which takes place on the 26th. So that's in 2 weeks' time. It's 3 to 5 p.m. Central European summertime, which happens to be 3 to 5 p.m. Cape Town time, right? So we've got exactly the same time. So in the afternoon, please connect. So please find the link or get the link and register so that we have an idea how many people are there. and it's obviously free. There's a little bit of formal inauguration, which is interesting because we will be hearing UNESCO in a way deliver us our roadmap and saying this is what we want you to do. So this is interesting for the network, but I think it's interesting for everybody to be able to hear, what is the network, what is the roadmap for open education. Then we've got a great keynote and a fantastic panel. The advert for the guest lecture is the following: François Tadei, president of the Learning Planet Institute. He's also a chairholder, and his title is, I think, absolutely exciting: Reimagining Universities for Sustainable Futures, Nurturing Open Education and Collective Responsibility. Just to give you a glimpse of what François thinks about, he says, we're all trying to build the citizens of tomorrow, but citizens correspond to the old-fashioned world. It was invented by the Greeks in a moment where every city had to fight against the next city. Is that really what we want to do today? So, re-questioning even things that are just as obvious as citizenships are things that matter in our context. And for the panel, you will notice that we have got, out of 4 panelists, 2 of our friends from South Africa. And it will be exciting because, of course, we'll try and go through the different topics we've just seen. Okay, that's about it. I mean, this is a really exciting project. I'm sorry not to have told you what's happening and not. Just believe me, we're doing lots of fun things. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin. And thank you to India and Fauzi for the input on the international perspective. We're going to move directly into the next session, in which we're going to set the scene in local context. And I would like to invite Dorothy, Mpine, and Glenda up to the front. And we are very pleased to have with us this morning our Deputy Vice Chancellor for Teaching and Learning, Ms. Glenda Rodney. So, Linda, if you will come up with Glenda, Dorothy, and Mpine. And just to mention that today's program is an initiative that is hosted collaboratively by the 3 chairs who you see before you today. I'll introduce them each when they speak. But also, in addition to having UNESCO chairs with us, we're very fortunate to have Makoe, who is the Commonwealth Learning Chair. So, let me invite you to open things up.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so pleased to be here with you. I discovered 2 things on my way to the venue. One, there are no special privileges for anyone looking for parking. And also, it's quite difficult to get into the library without an ID card. Yes. And believe me, explaining to someone at the reception who you are, was completely blank, goes, no, your name? Is your name on this list? I really pretended to be a delegate. That would have been the fastest way. But yeah, there was I love those sobering moments. They kind of remind you that we're really all part of something. We're doing different roles, but we really are just part of the whole academic project, which is brilliant. So it really is my pleasure to welcome you to the UNESCO Future of Open Education in South Africa Higher Education Symposium on behalf of our university, the University of Cape Town. And thank you to the UNESCO chairs from abroad who opened the proceedings with such rich insights. Thank you also to everyone who made the time to be here, both in person and, of course, online. We extend a particular welcome to those who have traveled from afar to be here, especially during our winter. Probably not the greatest of time to see Cape Town at its finest. And definitely our esteemed guests from both the Department of Higher Education and Training and the Department of Basic Education. We are very pleased to have colleagues from a range of South African universities with us today, as well as participants from the Cape Higher Education Consortium Czech, the South African Institute for Distance Education, SEIDA, and University South Africa, UNISA. I would like to say a special word of welcome to students who joined us today. It's great to have you here. I think you have really the most critical role to play in all of this. UCT has been an ardent supporter of open education for more than a decade. And our current open education initiatives engage with critical issues related to accessibility and appropriateness of the teaching materials used in the global south. Our Open Textbook Award, now in its 5th year, which is amazing, really, recognizes innovative open textbook development activities that contribute to the University's Vision 2030 transformation agenda. Today's symposium provides a rare opportunity for us to consolidate our efforts around open education activity at the national level in order to ensure that the social good that arises from these efforts is made available to all institutions in the South African higher education sector. Make the most of it. At an international level, UCT is very proud to be a member of the UNESCO UNISA Network on Open Education, and we wish this new initiative great success in the important work it has to do. I hope you all enjoy the day. Thank you so much. Now we're going to hand over to chairs to do some presentations. Firstly, I'd like to thank Professor Glenda. Thank you so much for the welcome, and also for just ongoing support and passion for the idea of open education, and really being part of this process. Really appreciate that support. Thank you. Okay, so today I'd like to share some of the work of my chair, some global and local challenges, and questions and suggestions for the future. So, no, I don't think so. Okay, a little bit about me, Glenda Cox. So I've been working in open education since 2010. And right way back when we first started doing the Open UCT content repository and the Open UCT initiative. And I've been very fortunate to be part of a number of really interesting international networks. The Open Education Global, there's some members here, members online, a really big organization that has an annual event every year. And we were fortunate to be able to host that in Cape Town in 2017. The little picture is an incredible project called Researching Open Education Resources for Development in the Global South. It's looked at the impact of and use of open education resources across 26 countries. In the top corner here, this GoGN, very proud member of the Global OER Graduate Network. This is run through the Open University in England, and they support students who are doing PhDs in open education. So if there are any students thinking about that, it's a great network support and community. And then more recently, having the chair, I have been fortunate enough to attend the UNESCO event and start to understand a little bit more about what happens in UNESCO and how things work, and started to form these kinds of collaborations. And of course, out of that is, in the bottom corner here, the UNO network that's about to be launched. Oh, sorry. Okay, so just a little bit. Try that. Okay. Okay, so just some background context to
some of the more recent projects in open education that we've been involved with. And the background was certainly, and a lot of the motivation for writing a particular project proposal around open textbooks was the background of the student protests. And the students protest asking for transformation in higher education. And so what we launched at the University of Cape Town in 2018 was a digital open textbooks for development project. And part of the rationale and the imperative behind this was to make a very solid case for open textbooks as an example of open education and how they can address social injustice. And we had this project with a number of UCT authors, and we researched what they were doing and how they were creating these materials, and started to build this argument around social justice. And so that's the team. You've met Michelle. Bianca's over here, hasn't officially been introduced, Bianca Masuka. She's mostly supervising all the online conversation. And it's very interesting that in 2018, that was our objective, to contribute to improving inclusion in South African higher education by addressing equitable access to appropriate and relevant learning resources. And it feels like it's taken us quite a while, and we've had smaller initiatives. I feel today is a really important point where we can actually come together and try and make that a reality. So to talk a little bit about social justice, not going to get into a lot of theoretical work here, but just some simple principles that we found came out of our researching of open textbooks, as opposed to more traditional textbooks, and how open textbooks could address injustice. So one way was economically. So when we talk about the distribution of resources and the maldistribution of resources, we see that open textbooks have the potential to disrupt histories of exclusion. And we saw that open textbook authors were creating these materials that were affordable and contextually relevant, and that could potentially be used throughout South Africa. So that was the economic aspect. We also see an injustice of cultural misrecognition, where cultures are not recognized in materials, in content, in knowledge. And the open textbook process enabled authors to be able to create materials that were truly relevant and localized and multilingual and in different formats and different genres to make them so much more accessible and recognized cultures. And then in terms of political representation, and this is all about voice, about voices that have not been represented. And what we found here, first of all, academics acknowledging that they were the gatekeepers in selecting prescribed textbooks that perpetuated political misframing. And they realized their role in changing that, these open textbook authors. And as such, we started to see them, including students, increasingly in those materials and the development process, actually changing the status quo, changing the power dynamics in the classroom. So a very strong political argument for why openness and open textbooks can address injustice. So then the really big question is, if we're looking at transformative justice on a very high level, a meta-systemic level, then, well, open education, the examples that we have right now don't really address that. They'll only address it if there are across the institution and potentially across the country and potentially globally to truly value and include knowledge and legitimize Indigenous resources. So that's our aim for transformative justice. And to use the words of Nancy Fraser, who we use regularly as one of our underlying frameworks, it's only then that we will be dismantling institutional obstacles and really be able to achieve participatory parity in higher education. So if we look globally at the situation, and this is from 2014, so a little out of date. Maybe some of the bubbles lower down have become a little bigger. But essentially we know that there's these knowledges of the world that are based in the global north. And we need to be thinking, who is included? Who is excluded in the geographies of knowledge? What is our current state of knowledge? How is it produced? How is it circulated? And whose purposes does it serve? And all of this requires serious analysis of intersectionality and power. Where is the money situated? Where is the funding situated? Where are the publishers? Who are the publishers? Who are the editors of these journals? Who are the editors of this information? And who gets to speak? We need to be thinking critically about our voices, sharing our knowledge. There have been a number of recent texts that have called for a rethinking of these global knowledges. D'Souza Santos, in a book on decolonizing the university, the challenge of deep cognitive justice, talks about open education providing the means to share a diversity of recognizing multiple ways of knowing the world. Sean Bain, the second quote there, from the University of Edinburgh, has written a really interesting article called Digital Education Utopia. And in that, she also recognizes this imperative to engage diverse knowledges into our own ways of understanding our own knowledge projects. And then the third quote is by Leon Tickley from the University of Bristol, who is busy writing a chapter on decolonizing education for sustainable futures. He also talks about Indigenous knowledge systems that have been undermined by Western forms of knowledge. These need to be brought to the fore. Learning content should be finely calibrated to local cultures, societies, languages, histories, literatures, and natural environments. I've also been very inspired by the work of Mpine Mbembe, who is based at the University of the Witwatersrand. And this is a working paper from a public lecture in 2022 at the 50th anniversary of the UNESCO Chairs Program. And in this, he talks about the current techno-ecological situation of the planet, which raises questions of livability and habitability, those relating to innovation for democracy, to protecting the livelihoods of the most vulnerable among us, and to share our relationship with the earth and multiple living beings. It's a really interesting piece of work if you can get hold of it. And I really like what he says here, and I think this is what we should be thinking about as the day goes on. What in our critical arsenal no longer works because the world has changed or is in the process of changing? Together, we must learn to answer these questions so our thinking does not need to collapse, but rather to pave the pathways for tomorrow. Another recent document by UNESCO experts is around the future of higher education and calling for a new social contract. And I've just extracted a couple of little points from this book. It calls for openness, inclusivity, and diversity. It calls for rethinking of existing pedagogy. And it calls for intra-generational pedagogy, where the presence of students are foregrounded, building a truly inclusive, democratic higher education where students feel sense of belonging. And so this takes me on to what we're very excited about at the moment is projects around students as partners and their role in open education. So we have our student fellows here in the room. We're hoping to bring them into all of this event, reflecting on this event and researching this event. And this movement, the Students as Partners movement, is big globally. The journal on the side there, International Journal of Students as Partners, makes really interesting reading, and it's been around since 2017. And it's all about including students, not only in course design, facilitation and research, but as we've seen through our open textbooks as co-creators. It's built on principles of respect and reciprocity and shared responsibility. Those are also fundamental principles of open education. So these are questions to address, questions that I was thinking about when I was putting this together. So if our goal is to create open education materials for students and staff, how do we create awareness and make them visible? Because I think we can recognize that we're still working in small pockets in South Africa. We're not right across South Africa. And I do think that today is a very solid step forward towards being able to create this awareness and make it visible. Oops, sorry. How do we make what we do meaningful? How do we make these open materials meaningful? And I've discussed how we can include all knowledges. Think about multilingualism, think about multiple voices, think about relevance in what we create. And how can we help the incoming student, the student in higher education, and the student at work? This is another big question. I think collectively we have the resources to be able to do this. We just need to be collaborating around it and thinking about the ways we're going to share it. And then my last slide. So plans for kind of today and out of today, and my wishes and hopes. Increased visibility of open initiatives. We want to build on the conversations today and think about collaborating through the networks I spoke about earlier that I'm part of, the network that Colin spoke about, and other networks that we're part of, other networks in this room. Designing a practical plan, and this is what we want out of this event. So we're having this wonderful event today, and hopefully we're all going to enjoy it today. But we're planning on outputs and reports, and we want this to be the beginning of conversation and the beginning of collaboration. I'm obviously going to pursue our Dot4D student fellowship. We're very excited about that. And the aim is to bring in as many voices as possible, students, practitioners, activists. And the last point goes to Mpine. A demand for justice begins with knowledge. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What's that? Sorry. Next, would you like to invite the podium Professor Makoe. Mpine is a Commonwealth of Learning in open education practice.
Good morning, a warm, warm welcome. I must start with a warm because this place is very cold. So let's just try to be warmed us by rethinking the future of higher education, which is a subject that is very close to my heart. Maybe let me just introduce myself first. I'll do what she has done. My name is Mpine Makoe. I am from UNISA. As you all know, that UNISA has been in an open field for a very long time. So we have been looking at open education for the longest time. I even had to go to study somewhere so that I understand what this whole idea of openness means. Openness is the opposite of closed. Now, we have been in a system that has been closed for a very long time. A system like this one, where classrooms, space, and the space is closed, and the space allows those who can negotiate their way into spaces. And those that could negotiate their ways into spaces are those that have the means to do that. So it means that a whole lot of other people are being excluded. Now, what we have been trying to do, coming from an open distance education environment, is that we have been able to widen participation to ensure that other people are included in the higher education space. However, the system that we have been using is the system that you are all familiar with of the closed space. So when you do openness in a closed space, it's a very difficult environment to find yourself in. So one of the things that I did as part of the Commonwealth of Learning, I did a lot of projects for the Commonwealth of Learning in the country. And I went from one country to the other, some countries. And sometimes they would ask me, how do we move to an online space? So I'll go there just to assist them with instructional design. I'm also an educational technologist, so I do know instructional design. One of the things that we do. So I'll help them with the instructional design to move into the technology space. But when I was doing that, I realized that it can be just very few people who will be in the session, in the workshop that I'm doing. However, when they get out of the workshop, they are going into the world that doesn't understand what this is all about. So then I started talking to VCs. I would go straight to the VC, went come nicely to talk to me and welcome me like her. I would sit next to them and I said, actually, we need policies to deal with this matter. And then they would be like, no, but I said, no, policies, and you are in charge of policies. So that, and I also tell them that, so that when you leave, you want all this work to go to waste. Because you will support me, but when you leave, it will go to waste. So I started developing policies and then writing proposals to call to support policy development. So I did a lot of open education resource policy development, open education learning policy development. And because of my policy space in open education, which is relatively new because we looked a lot on practice. When you look at the work that we do, because we are higher education researchers, higher education teachers, we tend to focus on how best we can improve teaching and learning for our students. We don't really go to your level of thinking about policies and strategies and whatever. But I find it very helpful just to get into that environment a little bit and look at how we are going to do it. So I'm going to start with the project that I did for UNESCO. And this project was part of the rethinking of higher education. And also maybe because I wrote a concept on saying that the future of education is going to be open. And that's how I say it. The future of education is going to be open. And indeed, COVID assisted us a great deal, and to ensure that everyone is pushed into this environment that nobody even understood how to work with. So I was at my busiest. I was like emergency doctor during COVID, because I was at my busiest time, where people wanted to know how this worked and how this worked. And there was this remote learning. So maybe let me just talk about the projects before my time ends. I talk a lot because I'm a teacher. I get paid for talking. Why does not go this? Please, one more. So maybe as the higher education, rethinking higher education has been a project of UNESCO for a while. There have been documents, and I think Glenda referred to those documents. Yes, there have been all these documents, reimagining our futures together, learning to become pathways to 2050. So one of the projects that I did was this for this particular World Higher Education Conference that was held in Barcelona in 2022. It's just that we are far away, but I'm somewhere in those group of people, when we were all reimagining the futures of higher education, what higher education should look like. And of course, people talked about their own ways of doing things, but mine was always in open education, that learning has to be personalized. Learning is not about all size fits all. Learning must be collaborative as well. Learning must address those principles, the social justice principles of ensuring that no one is left behind. So we are now, it's simply working. Look, education is a right. We tend to think that education is something that belongs to certain people. It's a right. All of us have been engaged in education throughout our lives. How we do things is part of education. So it's something that is accepted throughout our whole life. And I'm using this African pot because I know that people understand that without one leg of this pot will never stand it. So what higher education has done in the past is to move away from the community itself and sitting in this space at the top, like UNISA, and I listened to yesterday, I was talking about why are we on the hill? Because I've always been the spaces of the hill. And we look down about our community, and it's a distance from the community. And higher education, one of the most important parts is to produce knowledge. But this knowledge has to serve communities. Now, if this knowledge is produced and it's in our libraries, this beautiful library, it doesn't get down. It's not helpful. If we educate people, we need to understand the people that we're educating, the community that we are educating. And that way, we will be socially responsible. Teaching and learning, absolutely critical, but we need to understand where it is coming from, especially from having the background or the history that we are coming from, or colonialism, or the apartheid education, and all that. And one of the things that we need also to dismantle, and then break by break, is the colonial education that we inherited throughout the years. Because we just carried on with whatever that was given to us and continue. That's why maybe you find that things like open education becomes very difficult, because we are up against a 400-year-old tradition of closeness. So when you're trying to talk about something very different, it really is a problem. So in this space, in reinventing higher education for the future, we had a big project of engaging on the vision. So we got all the policymakers from the world and these workshops, because it was during COVID, we were running them online. And we ran workshops online just to get them to think differently. And I said, don't talk challenges, just dream about what you would like to see, because that's an important part of vision. You don't vision what you what you want. All of you who are students here, you want to graduate. Your vision is that gown of walking across. It's not what everybody else does in the middle. So that's what visioning is all about. Visioning, when you start registering for anything, you are thinking of the end result. You are thinking that you are going to get it. So this is the visioning process that you probably may be engaged in. And the vision that I wanted us to focus on was the common good vision, because I've seen that it's important that we have to have the good of the community in order to reaffirm the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that says higher education shall be available, accessible, and adaptable to those with the capacity and ability to complete their studies. So we need to provide a vision where every member of society is empowered to develop. And Glenda was talking about co-creation, co-capacitating each other, and just throw things to people and bring them back. I was at a conference last week where we were talking about AI and how monstrous AI is. And part of the reason that we are sitting as higher education talking about AI is because it's questioning the assumptions of assessment. And all of a sudden we are like, how do we examine this people? How do we ensure that all the little knowledge that we have poured in their heads is coming out the way we want it to come? Now, we have to look at technology in a very different way in terms of what it needs to do for us, not what it does. So it's actually have decided on its own. AI has decided on its own to do what, and we are so afraid of it. We don't even know whether we need to run away from it or confront it, or it's like this very angry elephant facing you in the eye, and you don't know what to do with it. So those are some of the things that vision helps you out. Now, in this, after the workshop that I had, after the workshop that I had with all the community, open education came out, but network learning hubs as the future for building it, where people just meet, and they did it a lot during COVID, where people who are interested in anything, like farmers, they would gather together and then they will come up with how to help assist each other. Development driven, that was my thing actually, because I felt that we need to focus on education that is going to develop the society, not only about economic, individualistic way of doing things, but also communal way of developing for each other. Very briefly about the Mauritian education, this is another project that I did and at Mauritius, where we were doing the futures for Mauritius together. And Mauritius is a very small country. It does have a higher education institutions, believe it or not. We think that it's a touristy attraction and holiday thing, but there is life in it. So we looked at what is happening in each space, the input, what seems to be happening, analyzing what is happening, and there are many higher education institutions, surprising, with a very small population, I think of about 2 million. So it has a lot of people, but it is through this process where we looked at what is happening, we looked at what do we need to do. And the interesting group that I worked with in this project were young people from high school. Their ideas were so fresh because they didn't think about all these things that we think, they were so fresh. They were the ones who were talking about blue economy. Why are we not exploring our economy? Because we're surrounded by water, but they were very afraid of climate change. Because for them, climate change is a very serious matter in an island. It can swallow the whole island. So they were very, very concerned about climate change. So it was one of the things that I thought, for young people to think that way, and we are not even thinking that way. These are just the probable things that came in: technology enhanced, student centered, and nationally and internationally responsive higher education, economically driven higher education. Now, how would that, and this was a question that was asked to everybody throughout that process. Well, next.
Thank you. I'm going to invite Professor Dorothy Laubscher up. Dorothy, there's one thing I think for a second. Dorothy is UNESCO Chair in Multimodal Learning and Open Educational Resources at Northwest University in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Michelle and Glenda, for the opportunity, and for all the colleagues here. Thank you that we convened that on this past day. So, colleagues, let me just wait for a moment. I'm the new kid on the block. I took over the UNESCO chair from Makoe at the Northwest University last year in 2023. I was appointed as the chair. So I'm really excited to get to know all the networks, get to know all the people in the open education community. So yes, I'm going to start. Sorry, it's not working. Sorry. Let me just. Sorry. No.
It is a bit temperamental at the beginning.
Like a new person.
Yes, that's good.
And let's try that one, okay?
It's not that.
Yes,
There we
go. So, as far as my aspirations for our chair at the Northwest University are concerned, I really want to say we want to go back to the basics, ABCD. We are looking at 4 specific projects, and there are others in the direction of each of these projects as well. The first one is looking at self-directed open artificial intelligence in the form of a tutor. Now, at the moment, we all know the move towards artificial intelligence, and that it's definitely something that we cannot ignore, that's not going to go away. And what's important from our chair's perspective is to ensure that the artificial intelligence is used in a self-directed way. That students don't just absolutely blindly use and accept everything that's fed to them, that they reflect, that they think, that they critically reflect on the information that they are given. So we are looking at developing something in that field, and also utilizing the existing materials and existing AI tutors that are around, but specifically in terms of self-directedness. Secondly, we are looking at growing champions, broadcasting open education in terms of open education resource fellows. We have run some fellowships in the past, and we are looking at extending those fellowships both at an institutional level at the Northwest University and also beyond. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And the third point, C, serving the community by developing open education resources for the community that can be used by the community to uplift the community. And one of the examples here, this is just one project that we are busy with at the moment, Share to Teach, is a collection of open education resources for teachers, for learners, in various subject areas that is open for them to use and utilize as they choose. And then finally, G, sustainable development goals. Here we are working on a gamification project. It's called Prosper the Game, and we have released it as an open education resource as well. I also actually have a couple of decks of cards here with me, which I'd like to share with whoever is interested in that, where we look at sustainable development goals. So let me get into a little bit more detail on each of those. So, like I mentioned, the self-directed open artificial intelligence. We're looking specifically at MindJoy, which is not open at the moment. But that's also where funding comes into it. We're looking to get some funding so that we can open up the system and make it freely available to everybody. Here, something key behind the whole tutoring system is Socratic questioning, where the AI system uses Socratic questioning with whoever is feeding information into it, so that answers are not just fed, used, and accepted, so that the learning can actually take place in a scaffolded manner and a self-directed manner, so that it can be tailored by the tutor, so that students and learners don't just use everything that they are fed. So like I said, currently it's not open access. Here are just a few screenshots of the kind of things that are said and are used, and you'll notice when you feed an answer, when you feed a question, it's not just a direct answer. There are leading questions from the tutor to guide the student or the learner to eventually reach the solution that they're looking for. I'm going to move on to the next one, broadcast. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the background of the OER fellowship programs that we have been working in. I think this audience has probably heard me speak about this in other events as well. But we have run two different projects, one at the Northwest University itself and one through Cellular Digital Humanities, where OER champions were given the opportunity to develop OERs in their space, in their content area, and from that, obviously, one would grow the network of OER champions. And we're looking to really extend this in both those scenarios as well, both at our institution and across institutions in South Africa at the moment. So those are exciting things that we are really looking forward to, and we really see the potential of growing that network. And that's why I use the word broadcast, because I think the bigger that network of champions can become, so the broadcasting can improve in terms of open education. Sharing with the community. So here, one of the projects, and like I mentioned, there are more than one that we are currently working on at the moment, where we have created, we're looking at creating more a global community in terms of our OERs, and this one specifically is focused on teachers and learners. So we believe really in the collective effort of co-creation, like Glenda spoke a lot about co-creation with students, but with the guidance, obviously, of facilitators and experts. And in this particular project, we have a diverse mass of educational resources that's been designed by students, which we have shared with the community. And the examples that we have uploaded in terms of those resources are comprehensive semester planning documents, topic-specific insights, and materials that are specifically focused on self-directed learning, making use of strategies like cooperative learning and problem-based learning, and project-based learning as well. So at the moment, the site is under construction. If you are interested in having a look at that, I have provided the link there as well. But we are in the process of improving it, improving search functions, etc. But the basics are there at the moment. We just have it. There are just a few screenshots of the site. Some of the resources, you can see the extent of the resources that are available, different content areas, different subject areas. We also extended just beyond only learners, also with an open textbook that we created at the Northwest University. That's one of the things that we have provided on the site as well, and also some of our open access publications that we have at the moment that we share via that site. The fourth one, sustainable development goals, and we all know the importance of focusing on sustainable development in the global community. And here, we have within our chair, we have worked on a card game called Prosper. It's non-competitive, but it presents sustainability challenges, and it can be played by school children, by students, by adults. It's a series of cards, and they need to be matched with, there's a problem that is presented on the card, and they need to be matched by an appropriate solution. And it requires debate among the participants. So it really is opening up that discussion around sustainability. The focus for this card game specifically is on climate change, because we are also collaborating here with a greater project, a greater project called GREAT with the European Union, and we are involved in a case study specifically in South Africa. So that is where the whole drive for the development of this card game came from. Here are just a few screenshots of what the cards look like, but like I said, I have a few decks here with me, so if anybody's interested, you're most welcome to come and have a look at that. What is important also is not only do we have the cards physically, but they are available as an open education resource as well. So they are already uploaded on Merlo, that can be downloaded and used as an open education resource in whatever context necessary. Right, so our view or our aspirations for the chair really, that's why when I said I'm going back to the basics of ABCD. We want to look at different dimensions, collaboration, the community, the global picture in terms of the sustainability. We try as far as possible. We want to cover as much of the basics as possible. But yes, events such as this one definitely can assist us to grow that and to be able to extend as far as possible. So challenges, enablers, let's start with the enablers first. First of all, the support by having a UNESCO chair, the collaborations and the networks definitely makes a lot of the work that we are doing possible. Institutional support, we definitely do have support from our institution, from our faculty, from the research unit that the chair is seated in. And then also we have a little bit of funding from the Department of Higher Education, which definitely enables some of the projects that we are doing. We have a dedicated team of OER champions, starting with that group of champions from the OER Fellowship, as well as other colleagues who are working in OER development at our university. And also the research unit really promotes best practices in terms of open education and definitely assists to implement OERs. Community of practice especially is important in terms of student buy-in, and I've never spoken about that already. Involving students in the creation of open resources and open education really involves them. It invests them in that they are busy with, which makes it so much more valuable. So that I think is a real enabler in the whole process. Research partnerships is important. And also existing high quality OERs that are in existence. We know that there's a need for more high quality OERs, but those that are there already, there are some really excellent things that can showcase what OERs are all about. I'm going to just shift to the flexibility of open education. I don't think I need to say more about that. Everybody's spoken about that. Some of the challenges that we experience, the awareness and perception of OER, there is still limited awareness, and we need to showcase even more examples of open practices. Access to technology. Here also we need to look at options where technology is still a challenge, looking at offline options for OER, for multimodal learning. Sustainability, allowing sufficient time. One of the other speakers also spoke about the time that it does take for lecturers and students to be involved in open practices, and heavy teaching loads, etc. As usual, funding is always an issue that we won't go into detail on now, and also quality assurance is something that certainly does need attention and needs to be looked at. Do we have a future for open education in South Africa? Higher education? Absolutely, yes. We've mentioned so many of the aspects already. Technological advancements. We cannot work without open education in terms of technological advancement. We need to foster more collaboration, and that's why this is such a wonderful event today, because I think by growing a collaborative initiative such as this one, we really do have a future in open education, sharing resources and best practices. Some challenges do exist, certainly, but some of those we will be able to navigate should we be able to have a network that we can work with. So, colleagues, I think my time is almost up. I'm going to close with the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "Live as if you were to die tomorrow and learn as if you were to live forever." And I think open education absolutely talks to the second part of that quote. Learn as if you were to live forever. So there's so much potential, and the more open education is, the more we can learn as if we were to live forever. Thank you very much.